Just waiting a second before people can come in. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pamela Parrish coming in on a video podcast to talk to you about today. Today is election day, the big day when we can vote the Trump trash out and keep him out of office. It's too important. Today is too important not to ignore. And I'm talking to you, gentlemen, also. That if you don't get out and vote, you are forsaking your right to vote. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been monitoring things on the YouTube front through my TV, and they're talking about how Donald Trump has had a steady decline over the last 6 or so years. You know, he has made many threats to people. You know, it all started with the famous saying, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose voters. Let's not forget that, or the fact that he mocked a disabled reporter. Oh, I don't remember. We people that have a heart and soul in this country, we don't forget transgressions of a vile, sick, disgusting motherfucker. He's the guy who brags about grabbing women by the crotch and thinking that he can move in on them like a bitch. Remember? Billy Bush lost his job at Extra for that. Trump still gets the presidency. That's the biggest fuck up I've ever seen. One of many fuck ups by our lovely government. But I have to put myself on the blame game because the Access Hollywood tape came out just as the election was underway. Stupid me had never voted before Donald Trump got into office. You could bet all that changed for the 2020 election, you know? I got out there and voted to make sure that Donald Trump would never have a place in office. Joe Biden got elected in 2020. Trump's minions tried to stop that election, and it didn't work. Hundreds of people went to jail for Donald Trump. Some are doing hard time, and a couple of them have committed suicide. One lady was shot by the member of Secret Service because she tried to get into the rotunda where people were trying to do their jobs to certify the election. And let's not forget the cop, Brian Sicknick, who was tragically killed when somebody threw a fire extinguisher. You know, you thought he would be all right. But by the end of that day, he would be dead. You know, and let's not forget, Nancy Pelosi's office was violated. A tribute to Herman Cain, the guy who said, let's make good trouble, was desecrated. People wiping their shit and piss all over the place. One guy got into Nancy Pelosi's office. Sure, your tax dollars pay for that, but you don't have the right to go in there and sit in her office and steal her mail. Stealing a person's mail is a federal offense. And that guy, even though he served very little time, in wherever he lives, he was barred from going to a car show. A simple, ordinary car show. You know where people go to show off their renovated and fixed cars? They told him, buddy, you're not allowed here. We don't want you here. We don't want your foul stench at our car show. And I saw a video where a guy was at an airport crying like a baby when they would not allow him to fly. He says, I went to the Capitol for you. I did all that for you. No. A lot of these people went to the Capitol on January 6th to swear allegiance to one man and one man alone. Donald John Trump. Remember that. If you don't believe me, You can go and watch the January 6th committee things that was so heavily promoted here on YouTube. I'm sure it's still up. It's a matter of public record. Go and watch that shit. I implore you. And today is election day. What happens here reverberates around the world. I'm sure Mexican television is covering this. The BBC is covering this. Middle Eastern outlets are covering this. It's being broadcast everywhere. All eyes around this country. What happens here reverberates around the world. You know, over the last several months, I've been monitoring not just my own personal health. I've been staying offline, not doing much. But just because I'm not on my desktop, which I'm on now, doesn't mean I'm not finding and collecting videos about this. I have been doing it for like the last several months. I've been watching a few videos from the Lincoln Project, from Occupy Democrats to my local news. And let's see, even some other dude that's on the Midas Touch channel is talking about it. I can't think of the guy's name, but you can go through and look at the news bits section. I've been saving some of the most recent videos from Midas Touch. And they talk about Donald Trump's dangerous decline. You know, he's got physical and emotional problems going on. There are people that think that he has frontal temporal dementia. You know, and I remember seeing the shot where he was doing a thing with a garbage truck, and where he tried to go in and get in the truck to do his little promotional spiel, his bullshit spiel, in my opinion. He seemed to not be able to reach the door. He was like this, trying to grab the door, and he couldn't do it. And then his leg was swinging out awkwardly. Now I'm thinking he's either got a leaking heart valve going on, or he might have had a mini stroke, which is called a TIA. My dad had those mini strokes. And speaking of the swinging leg, my mom had that problem. She and I would often go to the grocery store or go out someplace that we like to go, and we would be walking around, and her leg would often give her trouble. She would almost stumble and fall flat on her face. But it turns out she had a leaking heart valve her whole life. And I think the older she got, the worse it was getting. So she lived with that for many years. Sometimes she would get out of step and, she would gather herself and then move on. It was that way for years. She had rheumatic fever when she was young. So, yeah, she had a damaged heart valve. And toward the end of her life, the doctor said, look, we can finally get you in and get it fixed so you can get back to living your life. You'll have to go into rehab for a while, but once the valve's replaced, you should be able to resume your normal life. She went in, had the surgery, and when things didn't work out well at the rehab center, my dad brought her home, and that woman got better within a month because he hired the nurse to walk with her, make sure that she was taken care of, and she had the love and support of her family around her. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Donald Trump wants to get rid of things like the Affordable Care Act. The Americans with Disabilities Act also. A lot of you don't know who Fred Trump III is. He's the son of Fred Trump II, the young person who died at the very young age of 41 in 1981. 41 or 42. And that was Mary Trump's father and Fred Trump III's father. And something that Fred Trump III recently talked about in an interview on MSNBC or some affiliate said that when his son was born, Fred Trump III has a son. I think he has palsy, and he deals with seizures. And the Trump family tried to take him off the insurance after the child was born. But they eventually put him back on insurance. But Fred Trump said something to the effect that Donald Trump, he had a talk with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said something to the effect, your son doesn't know who you are. You should just die. I mean, who says that shit? Who says that crap? And the reason why I get so mad is because I'm a disabled person. I have friends that have a condition like that where the person can't speak. Just because they can't speak doesn't mean they don't know who their loved one is. Donald Trump said that to the effect, He says, your son doesn't know who you are. Why don't you just let him die? And he even said that to Fred Trump Sr. when he was at the White House. So, the cost for all these people, meaning people like me, is really expensive. They should have just died. Who says that shit? If I find that article or I find that video, I will put it in the news bits. It might already be in news bits. I've already cataloged and saved many videos. Go through my news bits playlist. Type in news bits in the search in my main page here. But I think it's rather sad. Donald Trump wants to get rid of people like me, and he also wants to get rid of people that don't agree with him. He slammed people like Puerto Rico before when they had the hurricane over there. And that's where Sidney Poitier was living at the time. People thought Sidney Poitier had died in the hurricane over there, but he didn't. Sidney Poitier lived to an old age and died naturally. But Donald Trump not only slammed Puerto Rico once, he slammed it again recently, calling it a garbage country, a floating island of garbage. Can you believe that? But Puerto Ricans and Mexicans are going to be speaking loud and clear. You think you're going to get your vote, Mr. Donald Trump? I don't think so. And he's already out there causing chaos. He's already denying the results of the election already. And the day ain't even over yet. And the fact that this ignoramus that they call Donald Trump, the dumpster fire, wants to run for office again when he won't release his medical records. And we all see the cognitive decline as it's going down. Go to the Lincoln Project. They'll show you everything you need to know about Donald Trump. Go back as far as the 2016 election. I mean, it's just downright scary and very, very pathetic. And notice his wife, Marlena, hasn't been around. And Barron has not been around. And Donald Trump has already had 2 hits on his life from members of his own party. Yet he wants to hurt people like Kamala Harris. He says nasty things about her. She can't make a coherent sentence. Yet he can't even put 2 sentences together. He can't even say the origins of something. Or he made up a word, kofifi. He wants to shift blame on others rather than take his own personal responsibility. That's what a real man does. And the reason why I say this election is important is that we don't want a madman that is starting to lose his faculties, is turning into a version of his father. Fred Trump Sr., the head of Trump Incorporated, he had dementia or Alzheimer's at the end of his life. And the only way that guy got nice was by losing his memory. Members of his family would come in, some of them young ladies, and he would say, "Who's that nice lady? Boy, she was nice. Who's that nice lady?" And he would die in the 90s. And Dementia Don is going that way. He's talking about Obama, who hasn't been in office for over 4 years now. Come on. He can't pick on Joe Biden anymore. He can't pick on Hillary anymore. He still fantasizes on that. And members of his gallery that go to these rallies, some of them are saying, "Get off it, man. Talk about the issues." And I've seen some of his constituents that are in the audience falling asleep. And some were actually leaving. And I heard about one time he was several hours late to a rally because he was on some dumb radio program. And people were fed up. They were leaving. And I heard about how he bussed in some of his followers. But when they had to leave or they got ready to leave, there were no buses to take them back to their cars. And some of them were older people. Some of them collapsed. I don't know if any of them died. But if that doesn't show you he doesn't care about the human condition, then you have truly been under a fucking rock. But the reason why I voted straight blue this year is not just because of women's rights. We're talking about disability rights. We're talking about straight up sanity here. We got a guy, Donald Trump, that quotes Adolf Hitler verbatim. He's a Hitler Putin wannabe. Even Vladimir Putin wants nothing to do with him. He wants to hurt or kill members of his own party and others who don't agree with him. He wants to take away my niece's right to have autonomy. But the only problem is she can't speak. But you know what? Her mother can, and I certainly can. And other members of my family certainly can speak for her. If she were to get raped and mutilated by some scumbag cocksucker, she would be forced to carry that baby to term, and it could kill her in the process. She cannot speak for herself. She will never be able to live alone. The one thing she knows is that when she's hungry, she goes to the refrigerator, gets milk out if she wants to drink milk. Or if she's hungry, she'll go to the pantry and get a bag of chips or steal a Pop-Tart or two. Other than that, she cannot speak for herself. And I worry about people like her, because she would be at the mercy of these idiots who want to rape and mange innocent women. And seeing Trump mock that disabled reporter shows where Donald Trump's head is at. His demigration of women, his demigration of the Chinese, the demigration of Puerto Ricans and Mexicans. Let's not forget, man, Donald Trump's lineage is from Russia. Let's not forget where you came from, Donald John Trump. These two members of your family have spoken out against you. And Mary and her brother are pissed. In fact, Mary's brother, Fred Trump III, is voting for Kamala Harris. And he looked ashamed to be related to the Trumps. It's not his fault that Trump wants to act like a demigod and get rid of the voting system. Trump's mentality is that once he's in office, he should always be in office. No. In 2024, you need to get out and vote. You have to exercise your right as a voter to get out there and vote, and you should be able to do it without fear. I voted by mail because I'm a disabled person. I have a hard time getting out of my motherfucking house, and it's a safety issue. We've already seen that and heard about it on media. 60-year-olds punching each other out. All because the poll worker told the guy to take his hat off. Just take the hat off, do your voting, and walk out and go home. That's all he had to do. Yet, that bastard decided to make a show of it and punched the guy. Another one got mouthy with somebody at the polls, threw his hat near a person that was filming the whole melee, screaming like a banshee, and the people were telling him to get out because he was acting like a crazed lunatic. If you want that for your country, then you need to go to Epstein Island, because I'm not going to put up with that. And I'm sure a lot of people that have went from Trump to Kamala aren't going to put up with that. And more women have voted than men. You know, and those men who try to pressure their wives to vote for somebody that they don't want to vote for, you need to be in jail. This is not the 1930s anymore. We're not going to go back to that. It takes two people to run a house. Sometimes you have to work 2, maybe 3 jobs in order to keep that house. If you have kids, you have to take care of them. You have a car payment you have to make. You have to keep up on all that shit. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, those who still follow the Trump rule, you need to drop a set of sacky balls and grow up. And you need to start acting like responsible men and women. And those who aren't conforming to any gender, you need to grow up and start acting responsible. Start raising your kids right. And teach them that forcing somebody to vote for somebody that they don't want to vote for, shouldn't have to deal with that. And those who threaten with divorce, I would be like, if I can't vote for who I want to vote for, I'll be glad to divorce you. I'll see you in divorce court, bitch. Bye. But to take away many rights in this country, I would rather be dead than live in a country that has somebody that acts like Adolf Hitler. And I made sure to put my vote in, and you should too. You know, and to the young ladies out there that want to make a difference in this country, do good in your community. Go out there and feed the needy, take care of the poor. You know, things are pretty rough for some people right now. There are some people that are living check to check to keep bills paid while grocery stores are gouging people for money. And I'm one of those people that lives on SSDI and has a SNAP card, but it doesn't pay for nothing. You know, I only get the bare minimum on that SNAP card every month. But I do the best I can under the circumstances. And sometimes I have to bite the bullet and spend over $200 plus for groceries. So, yeah. Donald Trump wants to get rid of things like Planned Parenthood. It's more than just an abortion clinic. It's a doctor's office where young women and possibly young men can get the health care that they desperately need that they can't afford in a regular doctor's office. You know, and Donald Trump's violent attacks on their constituents and his own people He makes a reference about the enemy within. That scares me because he could take any power that he wields in that office and he could use it against everyday people, not just here in the US, but maybe overseas. And I'm here to make sure that doesn't happen. I learned my lesson from when Trump was elected, and I felt like such a dumbass for not voting, but I learned my lesson because when we got ready for the 2020 vote counts, I was registered, I voted, and we got Biden in. But Biden said when he was elected, I'm just the go between for the younger generation. The younger generation must now step in and take over. The grand old party should be started to be phased out. You know, there's a lot of older people that are in the government that aren't fit to be in office. Mitch McConnell, the guy who stopped in mid sentence and stared like a deer in the headlights? Yeah, nothing more was ever said about that. And one thing I noticed, before I close this out, the one thing I noticed is that a lot of Trump's rallies gave Kamala the ammo to confront his supporters, and she was showing them what they were dealing with. His steady decline was being photographed for all the world to see. She would talk about the important issues that we need to handle here, but she's also talking about if we elect Donald Trump, this is what you'll be seeing. Oh, I don't like this person, so I'm going to use the military. Oh, I don't like that person. I'll use the military on them. Oh, this person needs to go to Planned Parenthood for medical care. Nope, can't do that. And if any doctors try to treat these patients, we will make sure they lose their license. And some women have died already. So vote for people that want to come together and help each other. Help disabled people get the care they need. Help older people get the care they need. And disabled people have as much rights in the world as everybody else. As long as there is life, there is hope. And just for the record, Donald Trump, I learned a good word. I learned a couple of good things from watching various documentaries about people with ALS. When you're young, you have all your faculties. You can walk, talk, sit, stand, jump, run, play when you're a kid. But as you get older and older, and when you hit 50, maybe 60 years old, parts of you start breaking down. You don't walk as well. Your joints don't flex as well. And sometimes you could be struck down when you're young. You could get hurt in a car accident. You could get paralyzed. It's what you call, if you're healthy now, that means you're temporarily able. Think about that. You can go and watch a documentary about a guy named Gene Connolly. He worked for Concord High School and was a very nice man who worked in a welcoming community of people of all different backgrounds. Some of them had come over here from other countries to have a better life. And it talks about how he made people feel respected and cared about. And people said that Mr. Connolly knew everybody at the school and would often cheer them up if they were having a bad day. And he learned a valuable lesson. Don't sweat the small stuff. I realized that I'm part of the disability community now. There are people out there that don't want us to have it so good. But I'm here to help wipe out ALS if I can while I'm here. But Donald Trump doesn't want that. He doesn't want people to have a vaccine for something like COVID. He probably wants to bring back the Black Plague if he had his chance. Well, as you go out to finish voting this evening, make sure you do it safely and you do it responsibly. And show love to your fellow brothers and sisters, even if they don't deserve it. You know, Donald Trump, I think he's very unstable. He's not fit. He's not all there. He is more venomous than I've ever seen him. When you start attacking members of your own party, that shows that he is very paranoid. And we need to stand up for America, and we need to do it now. And before I close this video out, let's move on to something good, something uplifting, okay? I don't know if many of you use the video services like Amazon Prime or maybe Fandango or some other platform. Just a few months ago, back in September, Warner Brothers DC division released the film Superman, a Christopher Reeve story. Now, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it came out today at midnight. It came out at midnight this morning, and I watched it. I couldn't go to sleep until I actually watched it. And it's very uplifting, and yet it's so heartbreaking at the same time. Not just for his older children, but I think the one who had it the worst was Will. You know, he was the little boy who would go in to help his dad, to get his muscles moved and, you know, helped him with his therapies. As a matter of fact, I think young Will had to grow up pretty fast at the very young age of 2.5. He wasn't quite 3 when his father got hurt in a equestrian accident. In fact, he had his 3rd birthday in the hospital with the doctors and some children that were there. Of course, they had party hats and presents, but his father was in the hospital, fighting back from being paralyzed. You know, and at one point, he told his wife, maybe you should just let me go. What do I have now? Now that I can't throw a ball to my young son, I can't fly my plane, I can't go out on a boat. But his wife said the words, you're still you, and I love you. And that spurred him on to a journey that I will never forget. In fact, I was one of the lucky ones that got to write to him when he was in Culpeper, Virginia, because I was hit hard by that. So hard, in fact, I had a hard time sleeping. I couldn't really eat anything. And my moods were just really down in the toilet. In fact, I would be so tired, I would just lay on my floor in the basement and stare blankly at the TV. And one day, the Muppet Show came on Nick Jr. And it was the one with Christopher Reeve. I threw a tape in the machine and got most of that episode on a tape in my house here somewhere, if I still have it. But then I had to go over to the other side of the basement. When it was over, I had to go over to the other side of the basement when it was over, where the room was dark. I curled up on the couch and got what sleep I could. So the way I worked through that was I wrote him a letter, told him all about me, and that he would meet some nice people in the world and he would meet some real jerks in the world. You know, and I basically said, I've done that, and here I am still today. You know, I'm a fighter in the First Order. You know, and his mother, Dorothy Liam Crawford, wrote back and said, You're very brave yourself. All your letters or all your words and everybody else's is helping Chris day to day. She says, I have to get going now. Sorry I can't write more. And that was that. And then sometime after that, I got a letter from the desk of Christopher Reeve talking about how he was grateful for the time that I took to write to him. But it wasn't a problem. To me, it wasn't a problem. It's a sister helping a brother, That's what we are in the world. We're all sisters and brothers when we all get down to it. But the film explores some of Chris's career while they talk about the accident and some of the things he had to go through. But there is some spoilers. I want to warn you that if you see him in a hospital bed and you hear him think about all the things that he can't do, I've ruined my life and everybody else's. They had to use some scenes from Rear Window to depict what he was going through in actuality in Culpeper, Virginia. And for those that are sensitive, like I am, they do show the pop-off scene from Rear Window. And I was out of the room going to the bathroom. And I'm glad I didn't see that. But I watched the vast majority of that movie when I got out of the bathroom. And it was heartbreaking, yet it was uplifting. Because of Chris and Dana Reeve, people are now regaining their ability to walk. And it's all because of Christopher Reeve. And the nice thing about the movie itself is that it has Robin Williams in interview excerpts. And we all know what happened with Robin Williams just a few short years, after Christopher Reeve. And we had interviews not just by Glenn Close and other people, but there was also interview footage of Brooke Ellison, the young girl that was hit by a drunk driver when she was 11 years old. And she wound up paralyzed and went on to do great things. She fought for her right to go to school and to go to college and make a life for herself. But sadly, Brooke Ellison died this year at the young age of 45 due to complications of being a paraplegic. So, yeah, if you can, watch the movie, share it with your family, share it with your friends. It needs to be seen and it needs to be talked about. I've been waiting for that film to come out. Again, I couldn't go to the movies. I had bills I had to pay, and I had other things that needed to be done, doctor's appointments and stuff. So I waited until it came out on digital platform. And I'm so glad I did, because now I have it in my permanent library. I pre-ordered it just maybe 2 hours before it was even released. So I got it for like $14. And it makes you appreciate things a hell of a lot more. You appreciate the sunshine you see out your window. You appreciate being able to get out and drive your car. You appreciate being able to hug your loved ones or be able to feel their touch or make passionate love if you're married or if you're dating. Christopher Reeve couldn't do the love-making stuff, but the bond between him and Dana was never broken. She stood solidly behind him. And, he was slowly coming back from the disability that had him in that chair. So who knows what would have happened? He's been gone for over 20 years. The film was released around the 20th anniversary of Christopher Reeve's death. And it's not just a story about Christopher. We're talking about the love and devotion of a woman who stood by him through the good times and the very bad. You know, she never left his side. When things took a turn for the worse that last time, she came right back, and they were keeping him alive just long enough for her to get back to the hospital where he was at. She came from California doing a play. She made it to the hospital. She didn't even wait for the damn elevator. She stomped up those stairs and kept yelling to Chris, I love you, I love you, I love you. And not even 2 years after Christopher died, Dana would die from fourth stage lung cancer. And that's the same thing that killed people like Eddie Rabbit. You don't have to smoke to get lung cancer. People could die from secondhand smoke at a club or at a singing venue. Because back then, smoking wasn't outlawed in public places. And Dana suffered from a chronic cough. It didn't go away. And she had pain in her back. And they found out she had fourth stage lung cancer. And she would die, leaving Will in the hands of other family members. And I think some neighbors took him in and raised him up. And I think Christopher's older brother came in to help raise him. So, yeah. That's what I mean by a good family. Family members and even Robin Williams pitched in to help him. And now Will Reeve is at 32. His oldest son is 42. And his daughter Alexandra was a baby when, she was probably like 5 or 6 when she did a cameo in Superman, The Quest for Peace. So, yeah. Get out there and see that movie. Get out there and rent it, see it, share it, experience it. And again, as I close this video out, if you're voting today, get out there, do it safely, do it responsibly. And I'm glad I voted. I voted blue, and I'm glad I did. I voted for this country. I voted for our future. I voted to keep a demagogue out of office. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's my take. If anybody has voted, please leave your name. Please leave a message, and we could talk about it. We'll talk about it sanely. And for those on the Republican side that came over to vote for Kamala, share your experiences. I want to hear. I want to hear what you thought. What made you decide to come over to vote for Kamala Harris? I want to hear your stories. There's no judgment here. There's no judgment here. I'm just glad some of the Republicans have finally woke up to the realization that Donald Trump, he needs to be kept in check. If Kamala Harris had done something like what Donald Trump had done, the news media would be all over that. But Kamala is honest. I believe she's going to do what she says she's going to do. She talked about the matters at hand, but she also used her platform to show the Trump supporters that may still be following this man what the hell has been going on for the last several years. And many people have gotten up and walked out of his rallies. Some of them have even fallen asleep at his rallies. You can't lie about things like that. Check out places like Occupy Democrats. Check out Midas Touch. Go to the Lincoln Project. They've been following this for years. So, yeah. If you're going to go out and vote, vote for the right reasons. Don't vote because one man tells you to vote for me, and if you don't, I'm going to use the military on you. Come on. He went after members of his own party. Let's not let that happen again. I don't want another January 20th or January 6th. Anyway, have a good day, everybody. I'm tired. I'm getting hungry. I'm hoping my brother will bring me a sandwich. And I want to hear some of your comments. I know I'm not a professional at making these kind of videos, but we are talking about America, the shining jewel on the hill. What happens here will determine the fate of the rest of the world. You might not believe that, but we're all part of one big cog that keeps the world turning. You know, I don't want to see my own family members get nuked because we don't agree. But Donald Trump wants to neutralize the media. He wants to neutralize members of his own party if they don't agree with him. You know, that shot about Liz Cheney speaks volumes to me. And I'm bound to make sure that doesn't happen. And I already voted a few weeks ago. So, yeah, I voted for the right reasons. And you should too. Most of all, you should be able to vote without fear. Let's not forget, some ballot boxes were burned in different states. Many poll people were assaulted by Trumpers. You know, my brother John is a staunch Trump supporter, but I told him why I voted. Because if something were to happen to my niece and she were to die, if there wasn't such a thing as a death penalty, I would have went after the sucker who did it. But she cannot speak for herself. She's autistic, severely autistic, and I would run through fire for her. If you have anybody with physical disabilities, would you run through fire for them? She might not have much of a future in most people's eyes, but she's still my niece, and I love her very much. Get out there and vote. And most of all, hug your family members as we head into tonight. Keep an eye on your family for the next couple days. Make sure wherever they go, they're safe. And if you see a Trumper, try and treat them with respect, even though sometimes they may not deserve it. Donald Trump has never learned that lesson. Have a good day, everybody. I'll talk to you later. I'm going to get a drink. Take care, everybody.